Ah, yes, the last piece of the Battlefield lineup has finally made its way into War Thunder, the Chinese Z-10, the premier helicopter for the Chinese top-tier lineup with excellent weaponry, solid flight performance, and a well-rounded set of modules that makes this helicopter incredibly deadly. However, it does have its limits, so let's talk about it. But welcome back to yet another Talking Head video, ladies and gents. I opted to work with this method of review of the helicopter as I generally find raw helicopter gameplay in an extended format fairly boring. And if I have a boring time filming it, there's a good chance you'll see it in the same way. So let's continue. So the Chinese Z-10, it sits at a battle rating of 11.0, which is the top BR helicopter for the Chinese lineup, and was recently introduced in the Drone Age update. And it's one that has been getting very little attention, and it does make sense, as helicopters in general, their grinds are incredibly difficult and take a very long time to complete. And trust me when I say the Chinese helicopters are no different to that. Now off to the pros and the cons of this new edition. First and foremost, it has the missile approach warning system, which in my opinion is absolutely critical in the top tier environment, as SAM systems they're fairly common, well, for the most part anyways, and they're certainly out to get you. And even more so, if you're in a helicopter, trust me when I say they're looking for you and they're gonna get you. So that means is that whenever a missile is approaching you, you'll immediately get notified of it in a really big cursor right in front of you. Your countermeasures will deploy, but it won't save you against any sort of manually guided missiles, but it does do fairly well against maybe other helicopter launched missiles, maybe some R-65 from fixed-wing aircraft, etc. Now, this is where things get really interesting. For its firepower, this is the biggest pro of this helicopter. It has the new AKD-10 ATGM, which can penetrate up to 1,400 millimeters of armor, and that's chemical penetration, of course. That is the highest in the game currently, and even the toughest Russian armor can't stop these. Hell, the wedges on the Leopard 2A6, 2A5 can't even stop this thing. I can almost guarantee you on that. It also flies up to 10 kilometers, but that is really dependent on the altitude of your helicopter. You will get 8 maximum range fixed, I believe, at below 1 kilometer. I could be entirely wrong. And you also get the TY-90 air-to-air missiles, which are basically slightly worse off R-60Ms or MKs, but they are all aspect at 6 kilometers, which is pretty damn nuts. And we can't forget the rockets, but those are generally not well performing anyway, so I won't go into the detail with those. Although you do start off with the stock ones, it's not really something to be wowed about, if that makes sense. You also have a 23mm chin-mounted gun that does, of course, have a ballistic computer, so it can track and lead other aircraft, helicopters, as well as vehicles on the ground, and it is incredibly accurate compared to the Apaches and the Ka-50s. I'm not even kidding. The spread on this thing is way better than that. Even found maybe on the 20mm on the Zulu. And it can penetrate up to 61 millimeters of armor, assuming you are using the AP belt. Stock belt will get you about 32-ish millimeters of base pen, though the roof armor of vehicles around 61 millimeters is going to be the ideal amount that you would want to have. And it means that you can knock out pretty much everything from the top of the vehicles. As for another pro, this helicopter is, I would say, incredibly agile, though it's not as much as, say, the Tigers, but it's far more stable than, say, the Mi-28s and maybe even the Apaches. And as always, at least for top tier helicopters, you get Gen 3 thermal sights, fairly excellent zoom, and meh survivability, which is fairly common for all helicopters. I mean, don't expect to really survive much. Hell, even 7.7s from Leopard 2s are probably going to kill you pretty quickly. And now for the cons. As already mentioned, the ATGMs, they're pretty slow. 345 meters a second, which is worse off than that of the Hellfires, which fly at 475 meters a second, and the Vickers, which go at 610 meters a second. Yeah, that's pretty dumb. And seeing that the missiles act much like the Hellfires, they come up and they go down, they can be very unreliable at times, especially with sudden quick movements at distance. So if you jerk your mouse around or something, the missile is just going to completely veer off target. Trust me, I've had this happen to me many times. And another con, you only either get 4 ATGMs and 4 air-to-air missiles with some rockets, of course, or you can get no air-to-air missiles and get 8 ATGMs, leaving you with your only defense being the chin-mounted gun. And that means you'd have to use it against other helicopters, tanks if you rush up to them, and some rockets too, and fixed-wing aircraft, though the ballistic computer does handle that fairly well for the most part. Though I believe a lot of these may change at some point, but I'm not holding my breath on for this one because the apparently, from what I've been told, the Z-10 can carry up to 16 of those and no air-to-air or 8 and 8, much like how we see with the Z-19. Oh, and no radar to speak of. Big con in my opinion. And what's sad though is the Z-19 gets a slightly lower BR, but we'll talk about that in a different video. And to add on more to my opinion, the cons very much outweigh the pros. You may have significant firepower, but you only get so few of those brilliant ATGMs and so few of those amazing air-to-air missiles. And you sacrifice all of that just for a chin-mounted gun? Yeah, I think that's a bad trade. Whereas the Z-19E and the tech tree version, you get 8 ATGMs, 8 air-to-air missiles, albeit the ATGMs are slightly weaker, about 800 millimeters versus 1400. You have slightly less range and are a tiny bit slower. The missiles go about, I think, 5 meters per second slower, though I like to believe that most of our engagements are within 4 kilometers anyways, unless you're in a Vickers-wielding helicopter. Yeah. But that's my sort of brief review of the Z-10. I wouldn't really recommend it in its current state, though it may see some sort of buff at some point, or maybe it won't. Gaijin's kind of iffy on this kind of stuff, but when it comes to helicopters, yeah, they tend to buff them a little bit more than not. And if anything, just go for the Z-19E or the regular Z-19. I mean, the premium one, in my opinion, is a little bit better than the 11.0 top variant, which is kind of unusual, and I promise you, you'll have a way better experience with them. At least that's what I've noticed. And yes, there's a possibility that I did miss something crucial. Maybe there's a feature with this helicopter that I completely overlooked or just haven't outright noticed. Feel free to let me know what those are in the comment section, and I will heart it, I promise. But while you're down there, let me know what you think about this helicopter. Did China need this edition? Is it worthwhile from what you've seen? Are you wanting to relive that Battlefield 4 nostalgia, pairing it with the 99A? Let me know. And while you're swinging on down there, don't forget to check out my live streams over on Twitch. Link is in that description. We are going to be having a Twitch drop, which means that I'll be streaming for a good hot minute. So if you guys want to earn that, you definitely know where to go. And also, don't forget to check out my 3% discount link. If you buy anything such as maybe the helicopters, or you buy Golden Eagles to grind for those helicopters, because I know the frustration for grinding those helicopters are very rough. And also, the code or the link works for Crossout and Enlisted, which is really interesting. And if I may be honest, it's pretty cool too, because I have seen some of those stats, and I've seen that a lot of Enlisted and some Crossout things have been used with it, so that's super awesome to know. But anyways, thank you for taking the time to listen to this talking head sort of review, and hopefully you enjoyed this, as I have many more in the works. I don't really plan on just outright playing helicopters in a normal fashion. I plan on doing it just like this with some helicopter gameplay in the background. But as always, I will see you not only in the next video or even the streams, but in War Thunder itself. So, happy grinding.